Hello and good afternoon to all of you. I hope all of you are doing well and all of you are in good health. So in today's class, we will be talking about data analytics lifecycle and the associated methodologies. Now, analytics lifecycle has in it six identifiable phases, namely the phases are fixing up business objectives, data preparation, descriptive analysis, predictive modeling, model validation, and model implementation. Now, during each of the identifiable phases, we perform a set of well-defined activities. Now, in the first phase, during fixing up business objectives, the first activity that we perform is define our objectives. Here, what we tend to do is we tend to list all the objectives that we expect the system to meet in order to attain our business objectives. Now, once the set of objectives have been well listed, what we need to do is we need to define the scope. So, scope basically tries to define the extent to which the plan is capable of catering to the requirement of the solution. So that is what scope is all about. So with each and every objective, what we need to do is we need to specify the scope. Now, once the scope has been defined, then what we need to do is we need to analyze the design and the design approaches. So once the set of objectives have been defined and the associated scope and design has also been defined, we need to move on with data preparation. Now, during data preparation, the first activity that we need to perform is data collection. So now what we need to do is we need to identify all possible sources from where data can be acquired, which can be of assistance in case of analysis as well as modeling. So we need to collect data from all possible sources, so it may be primary source or secondary source. Now, once the data has been collected, the data has to be explored in order to identify notable trends that are there that can be of potential use during analysis phase. So that is what is done in data exploration phase. Now, once the data exploration is done, we need to validate the data. Now, this is a very important phase during data preparation where we tend to find or determine the relevance of the collected data to the very purpose of the well-defined objectives. So there has to be complete compliance between the data that is collected, or there has to be complete relevance of the data that is collected to the objectives that have been defined. Now, once data has been properly validated, now what we need to do is we need to proceed with data cleaning, where what we try to do is we try to prepare the data as per the format required, and then we try to eradicate all possible problems that may be associated with data, such as inconsistencies, anomalies, and incompleteness. Because, as we all know, the correctness of the analysis or the accuracy of the overall analysis depends on how integrity preserving the data is. So, we need to ensure that whatever data is being used for analysis is cleaned and prepared before analysis. Now, the next phase that you have is called as descriptive analysis. So here, what we tend to do is we tend to perform simple descriptive statistics. We tend to perform univariate analysis, visualization, and insight, and then create derived variables. So here what we tend to do is we tend to during this phase, that is descriptive analysis phase, we tend to take in the data and then try to identify all possible traits and patterns that may be existing in the data. So once the traits and patterns are being identified, what we can do is we can use the traits and patterns in order to make quality decisions. So this is what we have learned in the previous classes as well. So descriptive statistics is basically capable of facilitating that. And then likewise we perform univariate analysis, we perform visualization and insight building, and then we create derived variables. Now derived variables are variables that may be participating participating in the relationship that we need to identify, and these variables play a very crucial role whenever we are trying to make certain business decisions. Then after that, we need to proceed on with predictive modeling. Now, predictive modeling basically tries to focus on identification of modeling techniques, appropriate modeling techniques, building the predictive model, iterating the model in order to ensure that the model is capable of fitting our requirement, and then eventually model interpretation. So this is what is done in case of predictive modeling. So we select appropriate modeling approach, then we build the predictive model, and then we iterate the model in order to ensure that the model fits our requirement, and then eventually we move on with model interpretation. Now, predictive modeling is followed by model validation, wherein we perform in-time validation and out-of-time validation, as well as we try to recalibrate the model in order to ensure that the model is capable of meeting our business objectives. Then eventually the model is deployed and the model is documented during model implementation phase. So this is in brief the various phases that are performed during data analytics life cycle. So again, I'll repeat, there are 6 identifiable phases across which a list of activities are performed. Now let us try to understand it with the help of some notable models that are being used in data mining. So the first model that we are going to discuss is called as CRISP-DM methodology. So CRISP-DM basically stands for Cross Industry Standard Process for Data Mining. So it is a cycle that describes commonly used approach that data mining experts use in order to tackle problems in traditional business intelligence data mining. So this is one of the model that is being used in case whenever the problems related to data mining is handled, right? Okay, so CRISP-DM, again I'll repeat it, it stands for cross-industry standard process for data mining, and it's a cycle that describes commonly used approach by the data mining experts to tackle problems that are related to business intelligence data mining. Now there are various identifiable phases in case of CRISP-DM methodology. So let us try to go through the phases in greater detail. So the first phase that we have is called as business understanding. Now during business understanding phase, this is the first phase where we try to understand the project objectives. So this is very much important. So this is the initial phase of CRISP-DM where we try to identify, understand all the business objectives and requirements from a business perspective. So what are the requirements of these objectives from the business perspective? So what is the value addition these objectives are capable of associating with the overall business objectives of. Right, so this is very much important because you see, identifying and understanding and identifying project objectives are not enough. So what we also need to do is we also need to determine its relevance to the overall business perspective. Then converting this knowledge into data mining problem definition. So this is very much important. So first what we need to do is we need to identify all possible objectives, we need to identify its relevance, and then convert whatever knowledge we have acquired into data mining problem definition. So here what we need to do is we need to formulate a preliminary plan to achieve the business objective. So it's very much important. So we need to have a preliminary plan that helps us in achieving our business objectives. So how it is done? It is done with the help of models or business models. So a decision model, especially one built using decision model and standard notations are being used. So this is very much important. So here what we take the aid of is we take the aid of business models in order to formulate plan for achieving our business objectives. Likewise, the subsequent phase is the data understanding phase. Now data understanding phase is a phase that is purely dedicated to collecting data and getting familiarized with the data in order to identify not only the problems that may be associated with data, but the patterns that may be evidently present in the data. So the data understanding phase starts with initial data collection and proceeds with the activity in order to get familiarized with the data. So this is very much important because we need to know the relevance or the significance of the data in context to the perspectives. Now, once you have gained certain amount familiarity with the data, so it's very important to associate or identify quality problems. So if there might be several types of problems that may be associated with data, so if an example data may be inconsistent, it may be ambiguous, or it may be incomplete. So what we need to do is we need to associate all possible problems that may be associated with data, because until unless we are not capable of doing that, then the overall result of the analysis process, no matter how strong the business processes are, will not be capable of delivering the results that adheres to the business objective. So this is very much important, right? So to identify data quality problems and to discover first insight into the data. So this is very much important. So here what we need to do is we need to identify all possible traits or patterns that may be there prevalent in the data, and using these patterns what we can do is we can form hypothesis for hidden information. So the patterns that are there evidently present in the data can be used as an assistance for formulating hypothesis for hidden information. Now the next thing what we need to do is we need to prepare data. Now data preparation phase covers all the activities that are involved in constructing the final data set or the data set that will be used for modeling. So this is what data preparation is all about. So data preparation phase, as I've already said, covers all the activities that are used for constructing the final data set or data that will be used for data modeling. Now here the tasks that are performed during data preparations are creating tables, records, appropriate attribute selection, as well as transformation and cleaning of data for modeling tools. So this is very much important phase in case of CRISP DM that tries to prepare the data for processing. Now after the data has been prepared, now what we can do is we can move on with the modeling phase. So in this phase or in the modeling phase, various modeling techniques are selected and applied, and their parameters are calibrated to optimize values. So this is very much important. So here in case of modeling phase, what we tend to do is we tend to select all possible models that may be capable of providing solution or may be capable of helping us in achieving our business objectives, right? Okay, and they are applied and the parameters are calibrated. That means their parameters are managed in order to to an optimal value in order to provide solution to our business objectives. So this is what is modeling phase. So as we have already learned in the previous class as well, modeling is basically a mechanism for identifying all possible concepts that may be related to the problem and establishing a relationship between them and defining the associated constraints under which the relationship will be capable of realizing business. So that is what is done in case of modeling phase. So some techniques have specific requirements on the form of data. Therefore, it's often required to step back to data preparation phase. So sometimes a specific model may have specific data requirement or a specific format in which the data has to be placed. So what we can do is we can intertwine between modeling and data preparation phase in order to ensure that whatever data is required by the model is provided in the prescribed format. Then eventually what we need to do is we need to evaluate the model, because until unless we do not know the efficiency or we are not capable of determining the efficiency of the model, we may not be capable of determining the credibility of the model. So this is very much important. So at this phase or the evaluation phase, what we tend to do is we tend to determine the credibility of the model. So here what we tend to do is we tend to check for whether the module is actually capable of providing the desired solution before deployment, because if it is deployed and if the model is not capable of providing optimal solution for the problem, then the overall execution of overall phases may be considered to be a failure. So it's very much important for us to evaluate the credibility of the model. So before proceeding on with the final deployment of the model, it is very much important to evaluate the model thoroughly and review the steps executed to construct the model to be certain it properly to be certain or to ensure that it's capable of properly achieving the said business objectives. So this is very much important. Our model evaluation is very much important. Now eventually, once the model has been evaluated, now what we need to do is we need to deploy the model. So deployment basically means putting the model to use in order to attain a set of business objectives. So here, in case of deployment, eventually the model that has been built is put to work, and it is used in order to achieve a set of well-defined business objectives. But creation of the model is not generally the end of the project, right? So this is a very important aspect that one needs to understand. Creation of model is generally not the end of the project, because model can be increased, the capacity and the capability of the model can be increased over a period of time, or refinement can be brought about to meet up to the changing requirements of the stakeholders. So this is the eventual phase in case of CRISP DM. So let's try to understand CRISP DM with the help of a very simple diagram. So here what we have is we have the initial phase, that is business understanding phase, and then we have data understanding, right? Then we have data preparation, then we have business modeling, and then we have evaluation, and eventually we have deployment. Now here to see, we can move back and forth from business understanding and data understanding, right? And we can move back and forth between data preparation and modeling, because in situation, as we have already discussed, there might be certain requirement of data during or of a specific model, or for an example, if a model may be requiring data in a desired format. So what we need to do is we need to continuously go in between, back and forth in between modeling and data preparation phase, right? Then we have evaluation, and eventually the model is put to deployment, right? Deployment phase, where the model is expected to deliver the desired result. Now here we can move from evaluation phase to business understanding phase as well, because in situation where we want to bring about refinement in the model that has been built for a business solution. So what we can do is in order to refine the model that has been created, so we can again move back to business understanding phase and progress from that particular point onwards. So the entire model is organized into a set of iterative phases, where constant refinement is brought about to the model in order to enable the model to meet up the business requirement of business requirement or the business objectives. So in this class, what we have learned about is we have learned about what are the various phases that are there in data analytics lifecycle and the associated methodology. So we have learned that there are 6 identifiable phases in case of data analytics lifecycle, starting right from formulation of business objectives, to data preparation, to descriptive analysis, to predictive modeling, then model validation, and eventually model implementation. We have also listed the set of activities that are being performed in each of these identifiable phases. And then we moved on with description of one of the life cycle model that is very often used in data mining. This is called as CRISP DM. So where CRISP stands for cross industry standard process for data mining. So where we have learned about various phases that are there in CRISP DM, and we have discussed each of the phases in detail, and we have seen the way how the phases are organized with the help of a very neat diagram. So this brings us to the end of this particular class. So in the next class, we'll be learning about another model that is called a SIMA model, and then we'll be moving on with the generic data analytics life cycle model. So thank you very much. Have a very good day.